The best product leaders aren't just product managers. They are part psychologists, part economists, part strategists. They see the world through a lens of first principles. But how do you move from theory to practice? How do you stop being a victim of chaos and start being the architect of your own outcomes? This is the Sovereign PM, the podcast that deconstructs the ideas of product strategist Schwarzkopf to give you a more powerful way to think and lead. It's time to own your outcomes. Let's begin.
As product leaders, how often do we truly feel in control? It's a relentless game, isn't it? Ricocheting between urgent demands, shifting priorities, and just that ever-present, almost gravitational pull of chaos. Our meticulously crafted roadmaps, those strategic blueprints we pour ourselves into, often feel less like guiding lights and more like quaint theoretical exercises, right? They get quickly derailed by the end of the first month. And in this environment, it's incredibly easy, almost instinctively, to fall into that trap of feeling like a victim of circumstance. We become like professional meeting schedulers, where our primary job description just morphs into absorbing this never-ending stream of external forces. But what if that very feeling, that feeling of being a victim, is in itself the biggest, maybe the most insidious blocker to our effectiveness, our growth, and ultimately our impact?
That's absolutely the crux of it. This victim mindset isn't just, a fleeting emotion or having a bad day. It's a silent, corrosive killer. Not just for product success, but I think more profoundly, for our development as leaders. It's subtle, it's often insidious, and frequently masked by this deceptive kind of busyness. We attribute our struggles, the missed deadlines, the feature that flopped, the team morale that's flagging entirely to external factors, market conditions, sales demands, engineering bottlenecks, lack of executive buy-in. And in doing so, we unwittingly, almost unconsciously, relinquish our most potent power, the power of our response. The core problem isn't solely the overwhelming external factors themselves, though they are real. It's our internal narrative, our fundamental operating system for responding to them. And this creates a vicious cycle of stagnation and powerlessness that, frankly, few escape without a really radical shift.
Okay, so if the victim mindset is the pervasive problem, then what is the radical alternative? Because you're right, just working harder or grinding more hours, that's clearly not the answer here. We're already operating at capacity, often way beyond it.
Precisely. This isn't about simply increasing output or trying to optimize an already broken process. The most effective, the truly impactful product leaders operate from a profoundly different paradigm. It's one our source material really champions as a founder's mindset or radical ownership. This is the fundamental, almost philosophical shift we need to make. From being merely the effect of a chaotic, often unpredictable system, to consciously becoming the cause of a better, more predictable, and, demonstrably more impactful one. Think of it not as a new set of tactics, but as a complete overhaul of our operating system as product leaders. We're not just trying to manage the chaos, we're fundamentally reframing our relationship with it. We're transforming ourselves from passive recipients to active shapers. Our mission today in this deep dive is to deconstruct this playbook, to really understand the first principles behind thriving in product leadership, especially amidst the inherent, often overwhelming uncertainty that just defines our domain.
Okay, let's unpack this core, almost, spiritual idea. You are the cause, not the effect. It resonates deeply with what some call the law of sowing and reaping, applied directly to product work, right? Every single result in your product world, a missed deadline, a surprisingly successful launch, even a confused team struggling with direction, it all has a cause. The victim PM, as we've discussed, immediately points to external factors. It wasn't my fault because. But the owner PM, the one operating with this founder's mindset, asks a radically different and far more empowering question. What cause did I set or maybe fail to address that led to this effect? What's fascinating here isn't just the question itself, but the sheer internal shift, the almost uncomfortable self-reflection required to even ask it, let alone genuinely answer it.
It truly is a profound reorientation. It's a fundamental shift in your locus of control. The victim's lens is almost entirely externally focused, a constant outward gaze. When a product underperforms, when a critical feature is delayed, or when team morale dips, they're quick to state, sales doesn't respect our process, or the market wasn't ready for this innovation, it was, ahead of its time, or engineering got the implementation wrong, or management didn't give us enough resources. This fixation on what others did or what external forces dictated leads directly to stagnation and that pervasive feeling of powerlessness. Because if the problem is always outside of you, if it's always someone else's fault or some unchangeable external circumstance, then your ability to influence the solution is, by definition, severely limited. This is precisely where the trap lies. By constantly deflecting responsibility, even subtly, we deny ourselves the most crucial opportunity to learn, adapt, and ultimately lead.
And the owner's lens is just the total antithesis of that. It's not about self-blame in a punitive sense, right? Or wallowing in personal fault. It's about self-accountability in an incredibly empowering way. It's about recognizing your own agency, your capacity to influence outcomes within a complex system. Instead of simply blaming the rain for your problems, you're asking, okay, why is my roof leaking? The crucial question here shifts from who is at fault to what systemic, relational, or procedural causes I contributed to or failed to address that led to this particular effect. It's a move from a purely reactive posture to a profoundly proactive, analytical one, focusing relentlessly on the levers you can pull, the inputs you can control.
That's the critical distinction. This isn't about internalizing every single failure as some personal flaw or carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. It's about recognizing your influence within an interconnected system. The owner understands they are a critical node in that system, and therefore their actions or their inactions can significantly impact the outcomes. It's about taking 100% responsibility for your response, your communication, your process design, and your relationships. These are the inputs you control. And by optimizing these inputs, by continuously refining your contribution to the system, you fundamentally change the outputs. You become a determinant, not just a dependent variable.
Okay, let's really unpack this with a classic scenario. I mean, almost every product manager, especially those stepping into leadership roles, has experienced this. The roadmap utterly derailed by urgent, last-minute sales requests. You've painstakingly built out your quarterly plan, gone through that painful process of alignment with various stakeholders, finally secured buy-in, and then boom! A major client deal hinges on a custom feature that wasn't even on the radar a week ago. The victim's response here is so predictable, it's almost a conditioned reflex. Complaints, feeling powerless, perhaps even resentment towards the sales team. Ugh, I can't get anything done because sales keeps throwing curveballs at us. How are we supposed to execute our strategy with this constant firefighting? This narrative leaves the PM stuck, essentially just waiting for sales to change, which, let's be honest, is rarely a viable strategy for long-term product success.
That's the classic victim loop, isn't it? A pattern that wastes immense amounts of energy and erodes trust. They see the sales escalation as just an arbitrary imposition, an external event that they are helpless against. They focus on the event rather than the system that produces the event. But the owner PM doesn't stop there. They immediately reframe it. Okay, wait. The fact that sales is constantly escalating urgent requests is an effect. What was the cause that I, as the product leader, potentially contributed to, or maybe failed to proactively address, that created this effect? This isn't about self-punishment. It's a strategic problem-solving inquiry. It shifts the focus inward, not in a narcissistic way, but in a profoundly responsible one, seeking those levers of influence.
And this leads to incredibly insightful, really actionable questions that the victim would never ask because they're just fixated on external blame. For instance, the owner might first analyze their communication strategy. Did I fail to communicate the roadmap's strategic value in a language that sales truly understands and, more importantly, cares about? Meaning, did I articulate how our planned features directly impact their commission structures, their closing rates, their ability to upsell existing clients, their competitive positioning in a crucial deal? Because if they don't see that direct connection to their core objectives, if they don't feel invested in our strategy, our roadmap simply becomes another set of engineering tasks to them. Easily dismissed when a real commission-generating opportunity arises. It's fundamentally a failure of translating product strategy into effective sales enablement.
Or, looking at it from a more process-centric perspective, the owner PM might ask, is our current intake process fundamentally broken? Is it leaving sales no other legitimate or effective channel for articulating genuinely urgent needs? Unquote. Perhaps the existing channels are perceived as too slow, too opaque, or simply a black hole where requests disappear without acknowledgement or clear timelines. If sales leaders feel that the only way to get attention for a critical high-stakes deal is to escalate directly to the product head or maybe a senior executive, then the process itself isn't just failing, it's actively incentivizing the very disruptive behavior we're complaining about. An owner would look at that process with a systems lens and ask, how can we make it more transparent, more responsive, more predictable, so that urgent needs can be channeled and evaluated systematically rather than becoming these disruptive last-minute emergencies? It's about designing a process that actually aligns incentives and clarifies the pathways.
And then there's the critical relationship view, which is often overlooked, I think. Have I failed to proactively build strong enough relationships, not just with individual sales reps, but crucially with sales leadership? to preempt or manage these issues collaboratively. This isn't just about being friendly or, having coffee. It's about building genuine trust and mutual understanding. It's about being seen as a strategic partner in revenue generation, not just a feature factory or a bottleneck. If those relationships aren't strong, if there isn't a baseline of mutual respect and a shared understanding of the overarching business objectives, then product will always be seen as a reactive service provider rather than an equal partner in driving business outcomes. You end up constantly playing defense rather than collaborating on offense.
And what's absolute crucial here, the connection back to first principles, is that this isn't about personal fault in a judgmental sense. It's about understanding and owning your influence within the interconnected organizational system. It really is a tangible application of systems thinking. You acknowledge your integral role in shaping the environment that produces these outcomes. The owner PM understands that their decisions, their communication, their process design, their relational investment, these are all inputs that contribute directly to the system's output. By taking 100% responsibility for these inputs, they gain the leverage to fundamentally change the outputs. They stop being a symptom of organizational dysfunction and start being the cure, building truly resilient, effective product ecosystems. This radical shift in perspective empowers them to move beyond those endless cycles of reactivity and begin actually designing the future.
Okay, here's where it gets truly fascinating, almost counterintuitive, I think. Our source material challenges us to see setbacks, even outright failures, those moments that make your stomach drop, not as endpoints or indictments, but as invaluable fuel for future success. It talks about the power of post-traumatic growth applied to product leadership. How does a product leader even begin to harness that, especially when the natural, almost biological instinct is to hide, to blame, or to just quickly move on from the pain?
That's the core psychological hurdle, isn't it? Our natural, often deeply ingrained instinct when a major feature flops or user adoption is near zero, or a strategic bet simply doesn't pay off, is to minimize the damage. We want to hide the disappointing data, place blame externally, or simply sweep it under the rug and pivot to the next shiny project to forget the pain as quickly as possible. This is the victim's default, right? It's a defense mechanism. But the owner PM, operating from this anti-victim mindset, reframes failure entirely. They see it not as a catastrophe to be mourned or hidden, but as invaluable, unambiguous data. It's a gift, albeit sometimes a painful one, delivered directly from the market.
So instead of seeing it as a disaster, it's a priceless piece of data for the low cost of one development cycle. That's an incredibly powerful reframing. It's almost a reevaluation of the economics of product development. You're essentially saying that a major feature flop or a product with zero user adoption isn't a catastrophic loss. It's an investment. It's like a tuition fee paid for learning something critical.
Precisely. And consider this. This kind of unfiltered real-world data is often something your competitors don't have. They haven't gone through that specific, painful, expensive learning process. They're still operating on potentially outdated assumptions or just generic market research. Your failure is, in a very real sense, a secret insight gained through direct, painful experience. This is a profound strategic advantage. While others are still theorizing, you now possess empirical evidence about what absolutely doesn't work, which is often far more valuable and directive than simply knowing what might work. The key question for the owner isn't whose fault was this, but what is the single most important actionable lesson from this failure that will make our next bet 10x smarter, more targeted, and more likely to succeed? Man, sit down. This isn't about wallowing. It's about meticulous extraction and strategic application of that learning.
This brings us to a fascinating psychological nuance the article touches upon, Leidensdruck. It's a powerful German concept, translates literally as pressure of suffering. Why is crisis or the pressure of failure often a necessary catalyst for genuine and deep-seated change, especially within an established organization? It feels profoundly counterintuitive to embrace suffering, yet its truth feels kind of undeniable when you think about it.
It's because true innovation, significant course correction, and bold strategic pivots rarely happen in comfortable, stable environments. It's just human nature, organizational nature. When things are good enough, when the ship is sailing smoothly, there's inherently less incentive to challenge deeply held assumptions, to dismantle legacy processes that are inefficient but familiar, or to make bold, risky bets that could truly differentiate you. Why rock the boat? Leidensdruck creates that undeniable urgency and profound discomfort that forces reevaluation. It strips away complacency. When a product flops publicly, when critical revenue targets are missed because of poor product market fit, or when a high-performing team is genuinely demoralized by a failed effort, That suffering, that collective pressure, creates a potent energy. It's a shared collective recognition that the status quo is simply unsustainable. It's the moment where the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the perceived pain of change.
And an owner product leader, rather than shying away from this pressure, they lean directly into it, right? They don't try to gloss over the pain or sugarcoat the reality of the setback. Instead, they embrace the discomfort, extract every ounce of learning, every hard truth from the experience. They use the raw energy of that failure, the dissatisfaction, the discomfort to build momentum. Not just for the next iteration, but for the next fundamentally better attempt. It's about resilience, yes, but it feels like more than that. It's about strategically transforming adversity into a competitive advantage. You are, in essence, weaponizing your failures, converting them into proprietary intelligence.
Exactly. They convert the raw, negative emotional energy of a setback into positive, constructive, almost magnetic momentum. Now, this requires, fundamentally, a strong culture of psychological safety, where honest postmortems aren't punitive witch hunts, but genuinely focused on systemic learning and individual growth. That's critical. An owner product leader doesn't just analyze the failure, they actively champion the insights derived from it throughout the organization. They ensure that the Leidenstruck isn't wasted, that it doesn't just fester as resentment, but instead becomes the engine for strategic pivots, for challenging deeply held beliefs, and for fostering a team that sees experimentation and learning from missteps as core to their identity, not just as an empty buzzword on a poster. This ability to extract and relentlessly leverage learning from adversity is what separates truly resilient, adaptive product organizations from those that are repeatedly blindsided by the same types of failures, merely swapping one set of symptoms for another.
So, what does this all mean for the product manager who, let's be honest, is likely drowning in tactical work right now? The source material makes a bold and, frankly, quite challenging claim. It says if your product or your team would completely collapse without your constant hands on intervention, if you are the single point of failure for critical information and decisions, then you haven't built a resilient system. You've simply created a highly demanding, indispensable job for yourself. That's a powerful thought that hits uncomfortably close to home for many of us operating in the trenches, I'd imagine.
It's a critical distinction, and it's the most common trap for high-performing, conscientious PMs. Absolutely. The tactical trap describes that common experience of being a human router. Their calendar is just a back-to-back nightmare of status updates, stakeholder check-ins, JIRA grooming, relentless firefighting. They're working incredibly hard, constantly in motion, moving information, making small decisions. But while they're working in the system, doing the tasks, responding to inputs, they're often not truly leading. They're trapped by the very operational demands they've allowed to consume their time and attention. This isn't product leadership at scale. It's basically a high-level project management function, limited by the leader's own capacity.
And the strategic imperative then is to transcend that. A true leader, the anti-victim PM, understands that their greatest leverage comes from working on the system. This isn't about abrogating your day-to-day responsibilities or becoming aloof, is it? It's about consciously carving out time and energy to build scalable processes, improve existing frameworks, and crucially, to coach and empower others to make decisions independently. It's the difference between merely unclogging individual drains and fundamentally redesigning the plumbing for efficiency and resilience. It's moving from being a skilled mechanic to being the architect.
Exactly. If you're constantly fixing individual recurring problems, you're not addressing the systemic root causes that create those problems in the first place. You're forever playing whack-a-mole, right? Working on the system means taking a step back to identify the patterns of inefficiency, the recurring communication breakdowns, the ambiguous decision points, and then designing systemic solutions that prevent those issues from ever arising, or at least from escalating into crises. It's the difference between doing individual tasks and building the machine, the robust, self-optimizing product organization that does the tasks more effectively, reliably, and independently.
The source material offers a concrete, almost non-negotiable mandate here, blocking out 3-4 hours weekly as dedicated work on the system time. This isn't just about scheduling an arbitrary block. It's about treating this time as your most important non-negotiable meeting on the calendar. It's not busy work or thinking time that gets sacrificed when the latest crisis hits. This is the strategic imperative, the investment that prevents future crises. How do we make this concrete, though? What specifically might a product leader do during this system time to move from human router to architect?
Well, the article provides some excellent actionable examples that really illustrate the immense leverage this time creates. One is refining a proof of value template. Think about the cascading impact of that. If every new feature or strategic initiative, regardless of its size, requires a consistent, robust framework for articulating its hypothesis, defining success metrics, outlining the minimum viable learning, and tracking its actual impact, you're not just validating one feature. You're building a repeatable, scalable process for significantly reducing risk, ensuring strategic alignment, and fostering a culture of accountability across all initiatives. This frees up countless hours of ad hoc justification, subjective debate, and post-launch finger-pointing. It codifies effective decision-making.
Or consider improving prioritization protocols. Oh, the pain of prioritization. The constant struggle over what to build next, the political maneuvering, the shifting goalposts, the endless reprioritization debates. These are symptoms of an unclear, inconsistently applied, or maybe even non-existent prioritization system. By working on that system, by refining the criteria for evaluating initiatives, increasing transparency around the decision-making process, and building consensus around the methodology itself, you remove ambiguity. This means future prioritization discussions become more objective, less contentious, and significantly faster. It allows the team to focus on execution rather than endless energy-draining debate. It's about establishing the rules of the game up front.
Another crucial example is articulating and rigorously sharing clear product principles. If your team and your cross-functional partners deeply understand the fundamental guiding principles behind product decisions, say, user experience above all else, always, or default to data-driven decisions, or solve for the root problem, not just a symptom, then decisions can be effectively decentralized. Junior PMs, engineers, designers, they can make day-to-day choices that are inherently aligned with a broader strategy without constantly needing your direct input or approval. You're effectively scaling your own strategic thinking, empowering autonomy, and increasing the velocity of decision-making throughout the organization. It's about codifying your strategic DNA.
And even something as seemingly simple as creating better release notes templates or a standardized internal communication plan for launches. This isn't just about good documentation, though that's part of it. It's about streamlining critical communication, ensuring consistency in messaging, and drastically reducing the cognitive load on marketing, sales, and support teams every time a new feature rolls out. A well-designed template means less time wasted reinventing the wheel and more consistent, impactful communication about the value delivered both internally and externally. It's eliminating repetitive manual effort.
And of course, coaching a junior PM on your team. This isn't just a nice-to-do or a mentorship responsibility. It's arguably one of the most powerful long-term forms of working on the system. You're directly scaling your own expertise, your strategic thinking, your problem-solving approach, your leadership style, by investing deeply in their growth. By teaching them how to become architects themselves, you're building redundancy, resilience, and expanding the overall capacity and strategic depth of your entire product organization. You're literally creating more architects, reducing the dependency on yourself as the central router.
And let's not forget the often underestimated power of those informal coffee chats. With an engineer or a designer with absolutely no agenda, just to understand their challenges, their frustrations, their insights. This builds profound cross-functional empathy, uncovers hidden systemic bottlenecks that might never show up in a JIRA ticket or a quarterly review, and fosters the kind of trust and psychological safety that makes future collaboration smoother, more innovative, and significantly more efficient. It's an investment in the human system, which is arguably the most critical and complex component of any product organization.
And what connects all of these seemingly disparate examples is the idea of leverage and compounding returns. It's fundamental. Every single improvement you make to the system, whether it's a streamlined process, a universally adopted template, a clearly articulated set of principles, or the professional growth of a team member, pays dividends forever. It frees up time for everyone, it reduces cognitive load, it builds organizational muscle memory, and it systematically reduces friction. This is how you genuinely escape the trap of being a tactical project manager and truly become a strategic leader who builds scalable, resilient organizations. You multiply your impact far, far beyond what you could ever achieve through individual effort alone. You're creating exponential value.
In product leadership, despite being constantly surrounded by people, it's incredibly easy to feel isolated, especially maybe at the top. Our feedback loops often come primarily from our direct managers who, understandably, control our performance reviews and have their own agendas, or from stakeholders who invariably have their own, often conflicting objectives and success metrics. The source material suggests a deliberate, profoundly powerful antidote to this inherent isolation, building your personal board of directors. Why is this so crucial, especially for experienced leaders who might feel they should already know everything or have all the answers?
Oh, the isolation is very real, and it's a significant blind spot that often goes unaddressed until a critical error is made. As you climb the product ladder, the problems you face become exponentially more complex, more ambiguous, and often far more political. There's just a distinct lack of safe, neutral spaces for product leaders to truly pressure test half-baked ideas, to admit their uncertainties without fear of appearing weak, or simply to vent and process challenges without fear of judgment impacting their career trajectory. Relying solely on direct managers for critical feedback can be limiting because their perspective is often shaped by hierarchical dynamics, internal politics, their own departmental goals. Similarly, stakeholders, while absolutely crucial for context and requirements, are almost always biased by their specific functional needs or objectives. They're not typically providing holistic objective counsel in your leadership or strategic direction. This is precisely where wohlwollen critique, or well-intentioned criticism, becomes not just valuable, but utterly vital.
Wolf-Wallen critique, that's a wonderfully nuanced concept, isn't it? It implies feedback that is fundamentally designed to help you grow, to sharpen your thinking, not simply to judge your performance or push a specific agenda. It's rooted in genuine care and a shared desire for your long-term success, even if the feedback itself is unvarnished, maybe even tough to hear. So, understanding that critical need, how do we proactively assemble this board? The article suggests a very specific, almost archetypal composition of 3 to 5 people. What makes each role indispensable?
Yeah, the intention behind each role on this personal board is quite strategic. It's designed to provide a 360-degree, unbiased feedback loop. First, you need the peer. This is a product manager from another company, ideally someone whose work you genuinely admire and who faces similar industry challenges. But critically, without the internal politics of your own organization, why this matters, this person truly gets the day-to-day grind, the specific nuances and frustrations of product management. You can trade war stories, get tactical advice that's directly applicable and contextually relevant, and find mutual empathy. They offer a safe, confidential space to discuss challenges without judgment or concern for internal repercussions. It's like a mutual therapy and strategy session rolled into one.
Okay, the peer makes total sense. Then there's the mentor. This should be a more senior leader, perhaps someone a few steps ahead of you in their career. Ideally, and crucially, outside your direct reporting line or even outside your company if possible. Why this matters. They can advise you on larger career strategy, help you navigate complex organizational politics and power dynamics, and provide higher-level systems thinking approaches to problem solving. They've likely faced similar strategic dilemmas, perhaps even failed in similar ways, and can offer invaluable insights into the metagame of leadership that you just won't get from someone purely in the tactical weeds. They see the forest, not just the trees, right?
Absolutely. And crucially, you need the truth teller. This is a trusted senior engineer, maybe designer, or perhaps a data scientist from your own team. This individual needs to have incredibly high standards, deep respect for you, and most importantly, the courage to give you unvarnished, direct feedback, even when it's deeply uncomfortable or challenges your core assumptions. Why this matters. They provide essential grounding in the technical, design, and practical realities of execution. They can call out when your ideas are genuinely half-baked, technically infeasible, or simply don't make sense from a user experience perspective. They help you avoid hubris and ensure your strategic thinking is rooted in what's actually possible, impactful, and sustainable. Their honest, constructive feedback is absolutely essential for avoiding costly mistakes, maintaining team credibility, and building truly great products that actually work.
And finally, rounding out this powerful quartet, the outsider.
Wow.
This is a friend or contact in a completely different industry, someone far removed from your immediate tech bubble, perhaps even from a nonprofit or a completely different business model. Why this matters. This person breaks you out of the industry echo chamber, that self-reinforcing loop of conventional wisdom. They provide fresh, often unconventional perspectives precisely because they're not constrained by the same mental models, industry jargon, or assumptions prevalent in your sector. They can challenge your thinking in ways that people within your own field simply wouldn't or couldn't, helping you see beyond your own professional bubble and uncover truly novel, sometimes disruptive solutions that were hiding in plain sight.
And the key here is not just assembling these individuals, but the intentional engagement. That's critical. Don't leave it to chance or wait for an emergency. The source really emphasizes putting a recurring, dedicated 30-minute chat on the calendar with each board member every 4-6 weeks. And come prepared. This isn't just a casual coffee. It's a deliberate, strategic act of seeking counsel. Always bring one specific, challenging question you're wrestling with. This small, consistent investment of time yields immense, compounding returns in clarity, confidence, and cognitive diversity. It mitigates the inherent isolation of leadership, broadens your perspective exponentially, and continuously sharpens your strategic thinking by exposing you to that vital, Wohlwollend critique that genuinely helps you grow, evolve, and stay ahead of the curve. It's about building a robust, diversified external feedback system to complement and critically challenge your internal one.
So, okay, we've talked about reclaiming agency, fundamentally transforming adversity into powerful fuel, scaling our impact by consciously working on the system rather than just in it, and fortifying our insight with a diverse personal board of directors. These are all incredibly powerful principles, forming a really robust operating system. But there's still that looming, almost primal threat for so many of us in product leadership: analysis paralysis. That debilitating fear of making the wrong move, the endless debate that leads to frustrating, costly inaction. The article offers a blunt, almost confrontational truth here. Knowledge without action is utterly useless. How do we break that deadlock, especially when the stakes feel astronomically high and the path forward isn't perfectly clear?
This is often the biggest, most invisible hurdle for many professionals, not just product leaders. It really is. It's not about knowing what to do. It's about doing what they know. The gap between insight and execution can be vast, a chasm of indecision. The anxiety surrounding a big decision, especially in complex, ambiguous product environments, often stems directly from the pursuit of perfect certainty. We want to eliminate all risk, guarantee success, have every single data point perfectly aligned before we commit. But in the real world of product development, perfect certainty is a mirage. It's a cruel illusion. It's often unattainable, and the relentless, futile pursuit of it leads to complete, demoralizing stagnation. You end up trading potential failure for guaranteed inertia.
And as the leader, then, your role transcends mere facilitation. You become the decisive nudge. You have to be the one who definitively breaks the deadlock, who forces the team into motion, even when all the information isn't perfectly present or perfectly aligned. It's about demonstrating confidence in forward movement, even if that movement is imperfect, even if it carries some inherent risk. It's about being the catalyst for progress, not just the coordinator of endless discussion.
Absolutely. The truly effective leader understands that prolonged debate beyond a certain point yields rapidly diminishing returns. It's not just a time sink. It's a profound resource drain, a morale killer. And critically, it actively delays learning. The market is where the learning happens. The source provides an invaluable, almost surgical script for precisely this moment, a template for decisive leadership. It goes something like this. Team, we debated this for 2 weeks. We have enough information to form a solid hypothesis, but we will not achieve perfect certainty through more discussion. The market, the users, that's where the real answers lie. So, we're going to build a low-cost prototype of option A this sprint. The debate is over for now. We will let the data from that prototype, from real user interaction, guide our next step. This isn't autocratic, it's decisive, it's pragmatic, and it's fundamentally rooted in empirical learning. It's a commitment to validated action over speculative rumination.
That script is brilliant because it explicitly acknowledges the team's efforts in debate. It validates their analytical work, but then draws a firm, clear line. It decisively shifts the mode from theoretical discussion to empirical learning. Beyond just making a decision, what are the core compounding benefits of this kind of action, of that decisive nudge?
The benefits are multifaceted and deeply impactful. First, it brings immediate clarity and profound relief to the team. You're taking the crushing burden of uncertainty, the anxiety of endless what-ifs off their shoulders. They no longer have to endlessly relitigate the same points, endlessly churn on theoretical possibilities. Second, and crucially, it commits the team to learning through action, not through endless speculative debate. A low-cost prototype is specifically designed to generate new information, real-world data from real users interacting with a tangible solution, which is infinitely more valuable and directive than hypothetical discussions, whiteboard sessions, or internal arguments. You are explicitly exchanging speculation for validated, market-driven learning.
Which speaks directly to the immense value of imperfection, doesn't it? An imperfect step forward, as the article so powerfully puts it, is infinitely more valuable than standing perfectly still in pursuit of a perfect mythical plan. This resonates so deeply with the core tenets of agile development, lean startup principles, and validated learning, where rapid iteration and tight feedback loops are prized above theoretical perfection or grand and flexible designs.
Exactly. And this approach also fosters a significant level of psychological safety within the team, which is paramount for innovation. By demonstrating visibly and consistently that learning from a wrong step or an imperfect prototype is not only acceptable but expected and even celebrated as a vital data point, you cultivate a profound culture of experimentation. You show that failure isn't a personal indictment or a reason for punishment, but a neutral data point. It's an opportunity for collective learning and growth that makes the next effort smarter. This courage to act, To take that first small, imperfect step, even in the face of uncertainty, to move from knowing to doing, is a true antidote to analysis paralysis. And it's the hallmark of a product leader who truly owns their outcomes and leads with impact. So if we connect all of these principles, radical ownership, transforming adversity into strategic advantage, scaling impact by working on the system, fortifying insight with diverse counsel, and overcoming inertia with decisive action, what emerges is this powerful integrated shift, a shift from reactivity to intentionality. It's about fundamentally changing our relationship with our work, moving from being a passive recipient, a victim of chaotic circumstances, to becoming the proactive architect of our own success, and, more importantly, the enduring success of our products and the resilient teams that build them. It's about building a robust, adaptable personal operating system that doesn't just survive, but truly thrives, not despite, but maybe even because of the inherent uncertainty and complexity of product leadership.
This whole deep dive really suggests that product leadership isn't just about managing features or shipping code. It's profoundly about managing ourselves, isn't it? Managing our responses to external pressures and relentlessly working on the systems we create both within our teams and within ourselves. So here's an important question for you, our listener, something to mull over, perhaps even act on this week. What's one immediate, small system improvement or decisive nudge you can implement this week to reclaim your agency and become more of that owner PM, moving from victim to architect? Something tangible, something actionable, however small it might seem at first glance. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, what resonated most with you, or perhaps a scenario where you've successfully applied these powerful principles. Share your experiences in the comments. Let's keep this vital conversation going.
And that brings us to the end of this debrief. Our goal is to give you not just ideas, but a more powerful way to think. If you found value in this discussion, the best way to support this work is to give this episode a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future session. And if you know a fellow product leader who is wrestling with these same challenges, feel free to share this episode with them. As always, you can find the link to the original, in-depth article by Karsten Schwarzkopf directly in the description below. Thank you for your time and your attention. Stay sovereign.